Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Zevachim Daf Yud. We begin on Talmud Bavli, 4 lines off the bottom of the Amud. Back to the halacha of Shaloi Lishma. Itma we have learned. What happens if Shchata Lishma, he took the carbon, let's say it's a chatas, where Shaloi Lishma, meaning misidentifying the carbon, mislabeling, is actually critical. So if it's Shaloi Lishma, it's possible. But this fellow did Shchita Lishma, with the right intention. I'm shechting for a chatas. However, my plan is Lizroik Dama Shaloi Lishma. I intend on doing the Zrika, so we have Shchita, Kabbalah, Halacha, Zrika. I'm doing the Shchita now in order to prepare, so to speak, the blood, the dam for Zrika, which I will do having a different carbon in mind. Shaloi Lishma. So the Shchita itself is focused. Is with the right intention. But the scheme is that the Shchita is sort of preparing the carbon, the dam of the carbon, for a Zrika, which will happen Shaloi Lishma. What happens now? So again, Shachta Lishma, Lizrok Dam Shaloi Lishma. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says, Psula. The carbon is pasul. The fact is, within the Shchita itself, he was thinking Shaloi Lishma, although not directed at the Shchita per se, but it was a preparatory act for something which will be Shaloi Lishma. He's already preparing for that Shaloi Lishma. And it adversely impacts the carbon. Rish Lakish Amar, he says, no, kosher, the carbon is perfectly fine. As of now, it was Lishma. He plans on doing the Zrika Shaloi Lishma. We'll wait and see what happens. Until it happens, it's okay. Explains the Gemara. Rabbi Yechon Amar, Pesula, the carbon is pasul. Machashvan. Me'avoida la'avoida. So a machshava, a thought, an intention, which took place, which transpired during this avoida, but it pertained to a different avoida, it takes effect. It's Shaloi Lishma. V'alfinon mimachshavas pigul. How do we know that this in fact impacts the carbon? So before we continue, we're meant to know there's something called pigul. So up until now, we pretty much only discussed Shaloi Lishma. He mislabeled the carbon. It's a chatas, he's thinking oila. It's a shlamim, he's thinking chatas. Pigul would mean if his plan is to do something beyond the prescribed period. So there are certain elements of a carbon which are served to the mizbeach. The blood of the carbon, the imurin, the fats, right? Some which are consumed by people. Kayhanim will eat part of the carbonis, perhaps even the owner, if it's that type of carbon, a shlamim. So if he intends on feeding or serving the mizbeach, feeding people, serving the mizbeach, it's called achilas adam, achilas mizbeach. Plans on doing it, in a week's time, past the time of the carbon. Right? It's about to be done same day or eaten within a day or two, depending on the carbon. He's thinking beyond that period. Shaloi bizmanoi. And he has that intention while he's doing the activities which are considered the avoidos of the carbon, the shchita, the kabbalah, the halacha, the zrika. While he's doing those, he is in a sense preparing the carbon that during phase 2, meaning when it's going to be served and consumed, it should be in a week's time. Shaloi bizmanoi, out of its time. That becomes pigul. And not only is the carbon pasul, but if a fellow eats part of that carbon, he gets kares. It's a very, very severe and strict disqualification. So it says Rabbi Yechon, just like over there. How does pigul take effect? While he's doing one thing, right? While he's preparing, he's thinking about how it's going to be consumed. So we see that a machshava doing the preparatory act for the eventual consumption can disqualify the carbon. Likewise by Shaloi Lishma, even though the shchita per se is Lishma, but if he's thinking, I'm doing the shchita in order to prepare it for a Zrika Shaloi Lishma, it becomes Shaloi Lishma. So we learn Shaloi Lishma from pigul. Rish Lakish Amar, he disagrees, Kshera, no. In this case, where the Shechita was Lishma, it's kosher, although he was sort of preparing for his Rikash Lishma. Ein Machashvan, Maved Lavoida, what you think in this Avoida doesn't affect the other Avoida. Just because he's thinking about Rikash Lishma doesn't affect the Shechita. We don't learn the Shalei Lishma from the Mimachshevas Pigel from Pigel. It's a different story. Rashi explains, Pigel works under a whole different set of rules. It's about consumption, it's about preparing consumption, which is unrelated to Shalei Lishma. And interestingly, the same machlekes we have over here by Shalei Lishma, we have elsewhere by Avodah Zarah. If a fellow takes an animal and does Shechita for Avodah Zarah, the animal becomes Aser B'Hana, the Itma as we have learned. Hashachat es habeima, so a fellow picks up an animal, does Shechita, benignly, but he's thinking Amanas with the intention, with the plan of generating blood, which will be served to Avodah Zarah. Lizrek Dama, to do the Zrika of the blood of this animal, or Ulahaktir Chelbo, to burn, to offer the fats of this animal to Avodah Zarah. So the act of worship has not yet been executed. But the Shechita, in effect, was a preparatory act, was a hachana, preparation for that eventual service. Does the fact that he's planning on serving it to Avodah Zarah, does it take hold of the animal already now? Rabbi Yechon Amar Asura, he says the animal is asur. You can't have any benefit from this animal. It's considered an animal which was used as part of Avodah Zarah activity. Just like we said before, since during the Shechita is thinking that this is preparing for Avodah Zarah, it already takes effect now. And we learn the halacha of Avodah Zarah, which takes place outside the Beis Hamikdash. We learn from the system of Pigel, which takes place inside Bifnim, just like over there. It makes it puzzle in this type of case, here as well. Rish Lakish Amar Boteres, he says that Avodah Zarah animal is still okay. Ein Machashim Avodah Lavoidus, because he was thinking, but it was pertaining to a different part of the process. At this point, at this early stage, it's still premature. The Shechita was done innocently, it wasn't done as an act of service. So it's not yet forbidden. We don't learn chutz Avodah Zarah, which takes place outside Mipnim, from the interior halacha of Pigel, which runs along a different track. And the obvious question is, why do we have to discuss two separate cases to bring out the same halacha? Utzrichi, there's a gersa utzrichi, both are needed. The discussion regarding Shalei Lishma and the machlekes regarding Avodah Zarah. The Iyashmin and Baha. Had we only discussed the case of Avodah Zarah, I would speculate, Baha Amar Rish Lakish, the Rish Lakish says it's still okay because it's a totally new realm. It's Avodah Zarah. Who says we can jump around from one Avodah to the other? Aval pnim mipnim, but in the case of Shalei Lishma, which is taking place in the Beis Hamikdash, regarding a carbon, perhaps pnim mipnim, if it's a question of learning Shalei Lishma from Pigel, Ema, I would perhaps say Moidi le Rabbi Yechon, that Rish Lakish is in agreement with Rabbi Yechon that in fact thinking about the Zrika during the Shechita affects the Shechita as well. And that's why we discussed that case to highlight even there Rish Lakish disagrees and says it's okay. On the other hand, had we only discussed the case of Shalei Lishma, I would say over there Rabbi Yechon says thinking during the Shechita for the sake of the Zrika makes it possible because we compare it to Pigel, which works along the same system. But in the case of Avodah Zarah, which is totally unrelated to Karbanos, perhaps we don't apply this concept. Perhaps he agrees to Rish Lakish that until he actually worships, it's not considered an Avodah Zarah material. That's why we highlight both cases, Shalei Lishma and Avodah Zarah, to indicate that in both we have the very same machlokes. Rabbi Yechon says it's effective immediately, and Rish Lakish says not until it's actually carried out. So once again, he does a shechita on a carbon, Lishma. Al-manas, with the intention, as a preparatory act for doing the zrika, for applying the dam on the mizbeach, shlei lishma. Rabbi Yechon says, it's already possible. The shlei lishma is already impacting the korban at this early stage. Shlager says, not until he does the zrika shlei lishma. Now we're going to have, the supporting material to support each shita. Kiyos Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amar, he says like this: Mosav Rav Yirmiyah, l'siyul Rav Yechon. Rav Yirmiyah brought a brisa in support of Rav Yechonon that the behema is the korban is possible. On the other hand, Rabbi Ilah, he brought a proof l'siyul Rish Lakish to provide Rish Lakish's position with support. Rav Yirmiyah l'siyul Rav Yechon. Rabbi Yirmiyah brought a riot to Rabbi Yechon as follows. It was based on a kal v'chaymer. Uma b'mak shim amar. Harin shechet chutz l'zmanei. Shu kasher. Look, if even a fellow who approaches a behemoth and he picks up his knife, does the shchita, shaloi l'zmanei. Okay, I'm doing this in a week's time, which is obviously not true. He's doing it now. There's no concept of shaloi l'zmanei on the act that you're doing now. Right? I can't say I'm doing shchita tomorrow when I'm doing it now. So certainly in this case it's shu kasher. So we see that the machshav or shaloi b'zmanai can't relate to the act that he's actually doing. Nevertheless, still shachata al manas lizrek domay chus l'zmanai. However, if during the shchita he's thinking, okay, I'm doing this in order to do the zrika tomorrow, so it's it's possible. It becomes pigul. That's the classic case of pigul. So despite the fact that the shalei l'zmanai element cannot directly relate to the shchita itself, but it could relate to the zrika as he's doing the shchita. So let's shift over to shalei l'shma. Certainly, makim, regarding a different concept of shalei l'shma. Shim amar harini sheichet shalei l'shmai. Were we to think on the shchita itself, it's shalei l'shmai, yes, it could have immediate impact. Possible, it's possible. So if that happens, so in a way, it has an advantage. It's stronger than shaloi b'zmanai, which cannot affect the shchita directly. Shaloi l'shmai could. If I do shchita shaloi l'shmai, it's possible. Certainly, if during the shchita I'm thinking that I'm preparing for zrika shaloi l'shmai, of course it should be possible as well. Shechatay al manas lizrek damei shaloi l'shmai. If he's doing the shchita with the kavanah, with the intention, the plan of doing zrika shaloi l'shmai, wouldn't you agree that certainly ain't a din she'ei possible? Right, again, shaloi b'zmanai can't work directly on the shchita, but during the shchita it can work on the zrika. Certainly shaloi l'shmai, which could work directly on the shchita that I'm doing now, of course, it can work with regards to the zrika. So we're comparing shaloi l'shmai to pigul. Maskav Rava Bar Eloi has a question on this kal v'chaymer. Malachus l'zmanai sheken kares. How could you compare shaloi l'shmai to chus l'zmanai, which is certainly more severe? Because as we explained before, by shaloi l'zmanai, which is pigul, there's a kares component. If one eats that basar, he's kares, as opposed to shaloi l'shma, which doesn't have kares. So you can't compare. Perhaps shaloi l'shma / pigul is more severe. Ela amar Rava Bar Eloi. I'll explain to you the kal v'chaymer. Okay, kamer means like this. Uma makim shem amar harini sheichet chus l'mkaymer. Let's shift to shaloi b'mkaymer. So we discussed shaloi l'shma, which can make the korban possible. Shaloi b'zmanai plans on offering it to the mizbeach or consuming it beyond its prescribed time. That becomes pigul / kares. Then there's something in between called shaloi b'mkaymer. He does a shchita with the intention of doing the zrika, outside the Beis Hamikdash, or eating it outside the Beis Hamikdash. So it's similar in a way to pigul. The intention takes place during the avodah, and the plan is to consume it outside its place. So this affects any korban. Chatos oil shlamim makes them pasul. Doesn't make it pigul, meaning if you eat it, don't get kares. So again, umam makim shem amar harini sheichet chus l'mkaymer shu kasher. If even in a place regarding a halacha, a concept of shaloi b'mkaymer, were he to think that thought while he's doing the shchita, I'm doing the shchita outside the mikdash. Of course, it's nonsense. Shu kasher, of course it's kasher because he's right here. So despite that weakness in Shalei B'Mkayim, so to speak. Nevertheless, if you were to do the shchita with the intention of doing this Zrika Shalei B'Mkayim, it becomes possible. Shechate al manas lizroik damai chuslam kami. What happens there? You're doing the shchita with the intention of doing this Zrika outside the Mikdash. It's possible. So even though it can't directly affect the shchita, it could take place during the shchita pertaining to this Zrika. Certainly regarding Shalei L'Shmai, which can directly impact the shchita per se, of course, wouldn't you agree that it would make it possible if during the shchita he was planning on doing the Zrika Shalei L'Shmai? Malkim Shim Amar Harin Shalei L'Shmai Shu Pasal. In a case where he was thinking Shalei L'Shmai on the actual shchita itself, it makes it possible. Of course, Shchate Amnas Lizruk Damai Shalei L'Shmai. If he's thinking during the shchita, I'm going to do this Zrika Shalei L'Shmai, Eino Din, wouldn't you agree with me? Shei Pasal. Of course, it's possible. So again, if we find that Shalei B'Mkayim, despite having an apparent deficiency, if he's doing the shchita Shalei B'Mkayim, there's no harm done. But if he's thinking, I'm going to do this Zrika Shalei B'Mkayim, it makes it possible. Certainly Shalei L'Shmai, which can directly impact the shchita itself, I'm doing shchita Shalei L'Shmai, it's possible, certainly, if he has in mind this Zrika. Maskal Rav Ashi. So you're comparing Shalei L'Shmai to Shalei B'Mkayim? Perhaps Chuslam Kaimai has an advantage over Shalei L'Shmai. How could you compare it to Chuslam Kaimai? It's universal, it's all-encompassing. It applies equally to all karbanis. So perhaps it makes it more strict and more severe and more far-reaching. Taimar b'Shalei L'Shmai as opposed to Shalei L'Shmai, which is in a way limited. It only can make the Pesach puzzle or the Chatos puzzle. That's it. So perhaps due to its limitation, it wouldn't have the same guidelines and far-reaching effect as Shalei B'Mkayim. She'en noig el b'Pesach v'Chatos. Okay, so that strikes that down. Elam Rav Ashi. Here comes a third attempt. Hachikama means to say like this. Again, we're trying to prove Rabbi Yechon's Shita that machashvin ma'avoda l'avoda during the shchita is thinking Shalei L'Shmai and the Zrika makes it possible. Uma b'makim she'im amar nishayach l'shem pleni. What if he does the shchita for the sake of the non-owner? Right? He has another person in mind. Shu kasha. Of course, it's kasha. Rashi explains. You know why? Because misidentifying the owner, misdesignating the carbon with respect to its owner only affects the Zrika, which actually activates the atonement, the kapara, which pertains to its owner. So only there is owner a factor. But if he does shchita for the sake of a non-owner, no harm was done. Nevertheless, if he does the shchita lizrik damai l'shem pleni, I'm doing the shchita, planning on doing zrika for the non-owner, that's called shinoi bala, you're switching the owner, puzzle. So even though it can't directly relate to the shchita, but it could direct to the zrika during the shchita. Certainly Shalei L'Shmai, which directly relates to the shchita itself, certainly it can direct. It can relate to the zrika during the shchita as well. Malkim Shem Amar Herni Shechet Shalei L'Shmai Shu Pasal. Certainly regarding Shalei L'Shmai, where were we to do the shchita Shalei L'Shmai, it's possible. Certainly Shechate Amnas Lizrak Daman Shalei L'Shman, if he does a shchita al manas to do the Zrika Shalei L'Shmai, of course, and did, wouldn't you agree with me? Shei possible, that is possible. Okay, so that concludes the raya to Rabbi Yechon's Shita. On the other hand, we have Rabbi Ila, who came to support L'Siyui L'Rish Lakish, that it's still kosher in this type of case. What's his source? You may recall we discussed the psukim by Karban Shlomim, which dictate the requirement of Lishma. Chatchila has to be Lishma. We have a pasuk for the Shchita, for the Kabbalah, for the Zrika. Why do we need all those psukim? Let the pasuk leave out that Zrika needs Lishma. And we'll know it by learning from a Kal V'Chomer, from Shchita and Kabbalah. V'teisim a Kal V'Chomer mibenai, from those two. Mishchita v'Kabbalah. Rashi explains. Look, Shchita that technically can be done by anybody, even a non-Kohen, requires Lishma, certainly is Zrika. Well, you'll tell me Shchita has an advantage because by Karban Pesach it has to be done for eaters, like we discussed. Well, Kabbalah doesn't have that requirement and still needs Lishma. So basically, if you pair up, you combine Shchita and Kabbalah, you can produce a sort of a common denominator which will cover even the Zrika. and teaches that it needs to be lishma. So why does the Torah have to go and stipulate that zrika needs to be lishma? We can learn mibenaya from between these two, shchita and kabbalah. If they need lishma, certainly the zrika, right? If they need lishma, likewise the zrika. So why did the pasuk, in fact, trouble itself to stipulate the special halacha that zrika needs lishma? Loimar, to tell you that the shaloi lishma by zrika is only a concern. If you had it in mind during the zrika, you can't think during the shechita for the zrika, as per Rish Lakish's opinion. The ein machashon maved lavoida. Maskala papa. Maybe just the opposite. Maybe the extra pasuk is telling, hey, you could. It's come to cover even this case. We were thinking about the zrika during the shechita. We're doing with the machashon maved lavoida. And Cain, if that were so, you wouldn't need a pasuk for that, because that's learned from the kavachayma that we just discussed before. The pasuk wouldn't have to speak about zrika lishma. V'teisim kavachayma. The Rav Ashi, we can learn from Rav Ashi's kavachayma, which supported Rabbi Yochanan, right? So the extra pasuk is telling you that it's limited. Machshava on the zrika has to take place on the zrika itself. You can't skip around. Now the other shita, who didn't seem to learn from this because he held that it wasn't extra pasuk. What are you suggesting? Learn zrika from shchita and kabbalah, so shchita is unnecessary, coming to teach us that no, malahanach, you can't compare to those two. Shkein tu nois tzafon. V'yashtem chatos apnimius. There's something unique about shchita and kabbalah which is not found by zrika. They're done on the north of the Azara, which is not true by zrika. They pertain to even internal karbanas chatas done inside by the heichal, which doesn't apply to the zrika on the mizbeach hachitz, and that doesn't apply to the eternal chata. So the zrika, in a way, is at a disadvantage. So he needs his own pasuk. It's not extra. Now the other shita considered it extra. V'idach, he says, look, these aren't distinguishing factors because hashtamiyah b'shlamim kamina. We're speaking about a shlamim. These are the psukim of shlamim. Now by shlamim, there's no tzafon. It doesn't need to be done in the north, and it doesn't pertain to internal chatas. It's not a chatas. It's a shlamim. So within the shlamim world, you can comfortably compare the zrika to the chata, to the shlita and the kabbalah, and learn from them. The extra pasuk is telling you ein machashvin maved lavoid. Okay, so bottom line is we have machlekes. In the case where he does a shchita lishma, planning on doing the zrika lishma, Rabbi Yochanan says pasal, Shlakish says kosher. We have a kal v'chayma to support Rabbi Yochanan, and an extra pasuk to support Rish Lakish. So just as a recap, itma we've learned shchata lishma, right? Our case. What happens? We have another machlekes. Rab Nachman Amar Psula, Rabba Amar Ksheira, and in fact, V'hadabe Rabba went and conceded L'gabe Rav Nachman to Rav Nachman's opinion that it's possible. Mikavachim de Rav Ashi, which we said before in support of Rabbi Yochanan, that in fact is possible. Continues the Gemara. So in general, Shalei Lishma is important; it's required, but it doesn't disqualify the carbon except if you're a Chatas or a Pesach. Rabbi Lezer says Afa Asham. Shalei Lishma is possible. Why? Tanya, Rabbi Lezer. I'll tell you why. It's comparable to a Chatas. Chatas Ba'al V'Asham Ba'al. Just like a Chatas is coming to atone for a sin, likewise an Asham. So they're comparable. And on the same plane. And therefore, Ma Chatas, Shalei Lishma Psula. Just like Shalei Lishma disqualifies a Chatas, likewise an Asham. Af Asham, Shalei Lishma is possible. Amr Risho disagrees. You compare it to the Chatas? No. Loyim, Amras B'Chatas. How can you compare it to the Chatas? Shkein Dama Lamala. There's something unique about a Chatas, which is not found by the Asham. The blood of the Chatas is applied on the top half of the Mizbeach, above the Chut HaSikra dividing line. So perhaps that makes it holier. It gives it a higher standard. And therefore, Shalei Lishma is possible as opposed to an Asham which is placed on the bottom part of the Mizbeach. Amar Rabbi Lezer responds to that. Pesach Yechiach. Just look at the carbon Pesach. That undoes your argument. Shadam Elamata, V'shchata Shalei Lishma possible, despite the fact that the blood of the Pesach is placed on the bottom portion of the Mizbeach. Shalei Lishma disqualifies it. Apparently, placement of dam, location of blood on the Mizbeach, is not a factor at play. Rabbi Risho responds, you're proving from Pesach? Oh, Pesach has its own uniqueness, which is not found by the Asham. Ma'ala Pesach, Shkein Zman HaKavua has a set time, a fixed time. Asham doesn't. Amr Rabbi Lezer says Rabbi Lezer Chatas Techech. Chatas undoes that argument. Doesn't have a set time, and still Shalei Lishma is possible. Amar Rishon responds, okay, so we'll go back and forth. Chizrani Chalil will go back and forth. You can't prove from Pesach because that has its special factor, and Chatas as well. So basically, back and forth, you're not going to be able to apply it to the Asham. Okay, Chazer, Rabbi Lezer, V'doni Denachas, Rabbi Lezer came around with another source. Chatas Namar Bahi B'Shchita. We find the word he discussed by the Karban Chatas is Shchita, to tell you, right, that he Lishma Kshera, Shalai Lishma Psula, that only if it's done Lishma it's okay, otherwise not. And likewise, the Karban Pesach has the word he. By Pesach Namar who has the word who by the Bezvicha, by the Shchita of the Pesach, to tell you it needs to be done Lishma, and it's critical. Who Lishma Kasher, Shalai Lishma is possible. Guess what? Af Hashem Namar by who. We find the word by the Asham as well to tell you who Lishmai Kasher, Shlishmai Pasal. So that's my source to compare the Asham to the others. Amr Rishon responds. Big difference between the Asham and the others. You see, Chatas, in contrast to the Chatas, where it says the he, right? Where does it say it? In what context? In the Shchita, right? Never Bahi B'Shchita relates to the Shchita. Sure, he Lishma is Kshera, Shlishma is Psul. Fine, granted, check. Likewise, the Pesach. Nero by who? Bezicha. It has the word who, with relation to the Zvicha, to tell you who is Lishmai is Kasha, Lishmai, if it's mislabeled, it's possible. But the Asham is very different. Because the Lashon, the word who, by the Asham, relates to the culmination of the whole process after they burn the fats. And that in itself is not critical to the process. Even if they omit that part of the process, they don't burn any fats, it's still going to be kosher. So how could the word who denote that it's critical if the whole story is not critical? The word who by the Asham is only later. After they burn the fats, who atzmain, the Asham itself, if the fats weren't even burnt, it's still kosher. So apparently it's not a critical part of the process. So the word who in that context cannot denote criticality. So we have no source for Rabbi Lezer. Okay, so here comes the third attempt. Rabbi Lezer responds, you're right. I have a hekesh. I have a pasuk which connects the Asham to the Chatas, done deal. No questions asked. To tell you, ma Chatas shloishma is pasal. Likewise, af Asham, if it's shloishma, it's pasal. End of story. Okay, so Rabbi Lezer adds the Asham to the list based on the hekesh. Now the Gemara will go back and sort of reanalyze part of the previous discussion. Rabbi Lezer sought to prove his halacha from the connection to the Chatas, to which Rabbi Shua responded, well, the Chatas is different. The blood is located upstairs, the Asham is downstairs, back and forth. We're going to reanalyze that discussion. Said Rabbi Shua, we're going to go back and forth, ping pong, because you can compare it to one, it's not comparable. To the other, it's incomparable. Says the Gemara, you know what we do? It's a classic case, right? We have unique factors which don't really match with the item that we're trying to derive from them. What do? We pair them up. We pair the two, source materials, pair them up, and we basically establish a common denominator. Something that's common to those two, and that allows us to include the third one as well, if in fact he matches with that common denominator. Do the same thing here with the Chatas and Pesach, and allow the Asham into the fold. Okay, go back and forth. Come up with a common denominator. So just like the Pesach and the Chatas are karbonos, and they're meant to be consumed, that type of carbon, likewise the Asham has the same halacha. What's wrong with doing that? Says the Gemara, you can't. Because there is something in common to those two which is not found by the Asham. You can refute this correlation. How? You know what's common to those two, to the Chatas and Pesach? They have a curse component to them. Chatas is pretty simple. It's coming to atone for eating fat, which has a potential curse penalty if done intentionally. And the Pesach as well, Rashi explains. Although it's not directly addressing a curse violation, of course not, it's a Korban Pesach. But if one willingly neglects, he doesn't bring a Korban Pesach, he's liable to curse. So both have a curse element to them, although not exactly, identical in property, but at the end of the day, it is a curse component, which the Asham doesn't have, so you can't compare. So that forced Rabbi Eliezer to look for another source, ultimately bringing about the presenting the Hekesh. But in any case, Amalei B'Shor again told Rabbi Eliezer, this goes a little further back in their discussion, I found that this, a distinguishing factor, something to set the Chatas apart from the Asham. Lo Yimamras B'Chatas, you can't compare the Asham to the Chatas, Shkein Dama Lamala, whose blood is placed upstairs on the Mizbeach, as opposed to the Asham. Asks the Gemara, V'lei Malei, why did Rabbi Shor just stop there? Why did you use that specifically as a distinguishing factor? There are so many other distinguishing factors which set the Chatas apart from the Asham. V'lei you could have told him, for instance, Lo Yimamras B'Chatas, Shkein Nichnas Dama Lefnei Lefnim. You know what's different about a Chatas? The halacha that if the blood of the Chatas was taken all the way, inside, into the Heichal, into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it becomes it's possible. Something the Asham doesn't have. And so the Gemara Kamrinan. We're speaking. Sorry. Let's just backtrack a second. You could have told him like this. Loi. Amras b'chatas. You know what's different about a chatas? There are some special karbonos chatas, especially the ones brought on Yom Kippur, right? Whose blood is taken all the way inside to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, something that the Asham doesn't have. So that's a distinguishing factor. And so the Gemara b'chatois kamrim, not speaking about those special karbonos chatos, rather the standard chatos who doesn't have that advantage. B'chatois kamrim. Asks the Gemara, we still have other distinguishing factors. For instance, there's a halacha about karban chatas. If the blood of a chatas is taken into the heichal, it becomes possible. Something which is unique to chatas. Shem nichnas dam lefnim is psula. And says the Gemara, guess what? Isli Rabbi Eliezer, afa asham. Eliezer would hold that even an asham has that halacha as well, because it compares the asham to the chatas. So it's no longer a distinguishing factor. What about another factor, perhaps? In contrast to the asham, the chatas addresses kares infractions. So that sets it apart. Answer is mechatas shmiyas hakoil. Speaking about a chatas, that's not coming to address a kares infraction. It's coming on account of a fellow who swore to deny his ability to testify. So that's not a kares violation, and the chatas comes on account of that as well. But we have other distinguishing factors. Shekain tuna arba matanes. You know what's special about a chatas? The blood is applied on the four, these corners, these protrusions on the top of the mizbeach, on all four corners. Something which is unique to chatas. And says the Gemara Rabbi Shmuel, or Blazer will hold like Rabbi Shmuel, the Amar Kol Adam tuna arba matanes, that the idea of applying the blood in four locations is not unique to chatas. All karbanos have a similar idea. Says the Gemara, okay, but there are other factors that set the chatas apart from the asham. Shkein tu al arba kronos. The blood of the chatas is placed on the four protrusions, the four corners, the horns that stick out of the mizbeach's roof. Something which the other karbanos don't have. Rashi explains that there are differences, although other karbanos are placed in four separate applications, but not on the actual corners. With tameich. Says the Gemara, according to what you're asking, you found some distinguishing factors. There are many others as well. Ha'ika etzba, ha'ika keren, ha'ika chuda. The chatas, his blood is applied manually with his finger. Something you don't find in other karbanis, which are just sprayed with a kli. Ha'ika keren, by the chatas, you put it on the keren itself, so you don't have other karbanis. Ha'ika chuda, the kayin applies the blood of the chatas by the actual where the corner converges, where the walls, the two angles converge in the corner. So he applies the blood on the actual, something which you don't find by other karbanis. So basically, yeah, you're right, there are many distinguishing factors. Instead of Rabbi Shua giving him the whole gamut, whole list of distinguishing factors, he picked one of two, three, just to make his point, but in fact, granted, you're right, there are many other factors as well. Let's go back again to reanalyze part of their discussion. Rabbi Shua responds, how could you compare the asham to the chatas? Lo im amris. Can't compare to the chatas, whose blood is placed on the top half of the mizbeach. That makes it unique. Why can't Rabbi Lezer just say, okay, the asham as well belongs there? Leim b'lei, Rabbi Lezer, asham nami, damalamala. I hold that the asham's blood is also placed at that location. Amar Abaye, you can't say that. You can't. Asham damalamala, to suggest that the dam of the asham goes on top of the mizbeach. Leim was his amris. You can't even suggest that. Kavachimer, because if we have a kavachimer that undoes that notion. Take a look at the oila. Kavachimer me'oila. Uma oila sheikol. Even an oila who's fully incinerated on the mizbeach, so it's like as holy as you get, right? Dama lamata, still the blood is placed on the bottom of the mizbeach. Certainly the asham she'ena kol, which doesn't have the kolel factor to it. L'kolshkein, wouldn't you agree with me? That doesn't belong higher than the oila. So the dam is placed on the bottom portion of the mizbeach. Well, how could you compare the asham to the oila? Perhaps the asham stands higher. The oila is not, brought to atone for a specific sin, as opposed to the asham, which is, or perhaps it belongs on top. Well, that could be undone by the chatas ha'oiv techiach. It'll disprove that point by looking at the bird chatas, which is coming to be mechaper, right, atoning for a sin, and still the blood of the bird chatas is placed on the bottom half of the mizbeach. And likewise the asham. Well, says the Gemara, you can't compare to the bird chatas. Malach chatas oishkein eino min zevach. It has a deficiency relative to the asham, which is an animal carbon, and a bird is not an animal carbon. Oila techiach, that can be disproven by looking at the oila, which is an animal carbon, and still placed on the bottom half of the mizbeach. So basically, we can go back and forth. Lo roizeh, the factors found by the oila is not found by the chatas. The factors we find by the chatas oif is not found by the oila. Right? You can sort of blame. Right? In both cases, their blood is placed lamata, on the bottom half of the mizbeach. But we can't really pin the reason. You can attribute it to the fact that a chatas oif is only a bird. Well, the oila is an animal, and still. Well, you can say the oila is not mechaper, and that's why. Well, the chatas oif has been mechaper, and still. So what's the bottom line? What's the common denominator? What's common to those two? Shein kosher kosher, despite them being labeled as kosher kosher, the highest, and holiest karbanis, and still the blood of those karbanis is placed on the bottom half of the mizbeach. Likewise, I'll include the asham. Despite the fact that it's labeled as kosher asham, still the blood is applied downstairs. Hold it, 1 second. I can distinguish between the asham and the other two. Why? What's common to those two? Not found by the asham. Shkein einan kitzvah. In those two, there's no set fixed, value. You can buy a cheap bird if you want, right? The asham has a set value. Rashi says it has to be worth at least kesef shekalim. So perhaps that sets it higher than the others. And perhaps the dam should go upstairs. Ella, rather we have to look for another reason why Rabbi Lezer would concede that the dam of the asham is downstairs. High in the time of Rabbi Lezer, you know why? The pasuk says hakoyin machata oisa. The kohen who applies the blood of the chatas oisa. It's limited to the chatas. This location is for the chatas only. Oisa, the chatas' blood is dam alamala, goes upstairs. But no other carbon goes upstairs, including the asham. Says the Gemara, hold it. Yochi chatas nami. So let's go back to Shaloi Lishma for a second. Let's take a detour. Just like a chatas, Shaloi Lishma is possible, Rabbi Lezer says asham as well. But according to this diuk, Yachi chatas nami. Take a look at the halacha of the Shema by the chatas. Namely, we can say oisa. Pasuk says Rashachat oisa lachatas. Perhaps only the chatas has the lishma as being critical. Oisa lishma kshera b'shlo lishma is psula. Hoshar Zevachim, but otherwise, other karbanos, including the asham, doesn't have this requirement. Perhaps bein lishma. Bein shlo lishma, whether they had in mind lishma or shlo lishma, they're ksherin. This flies in the face of our whole discussion, because Rabbi Lezer holds that asham also has the din of shlo lishma psula. Says, well, you always love dafka. Always love dafka. We have to say the word oisa regarding chatas Shalai Lishma is not necessarily coming to exclude everything else. Why? Because apparently it's not excluding everything. We all know that aside from the Chatas, there's a Pesach as well. That Shalai Lishma is critical. So apparently it's not limited to Chatas. Though Shir Pesach, the Torah leaves out the Pesach. Apparently the Torah is not intending on leaving out other Karbanos. Says the Gemara. Okay, but in contrast to the discussion regarding the location of the dominant Mizbeach, there you're telling me that the word Oisa by the Chatas is coming to exclude everything except for the Chatas? Hachanami LiveDafka. But it's clearly not so. Because Chatas isn't the only carbon whose blood goes upstairs. We just learned before the Oilas Ha'oif. Chatas Ha'oif is downstairs, but Oilas Ha'oif is upstairs. The Ashir Oilas Ha'oif, Torah left out Oilas Ha'oif, whose blood is upstairs. So clearly, it's not coming to exclude everything. That's not a Chatas. So perhaps the Asham as well should go upstairs. No, incorrect. The Torah says the blood of the Chatas goes upstairs and only the Chatas. It is accurate. It's a very accurate statement. Because there is no other animal, no other animal carbon that goes upstairs. So in that sense, nothing was left out. It was a very accurate, precise statement. Oilas Ha'oif is a bird. It doesn't go into this discussion. Hence, we know that a Asham's blood is downstairs. Another way to answer this question is, when the pasuk says that the blood of the Chatas, only that blood goes upstairs, nothing else. Ask you a question, what about the Oilas Ha'oif? It's a little bit of a different location. Although it's, the upper half of the Mizbeach, but it's not the same place as the Chatas. Hamani or Blezer B'Shimoni. We're going to Blezer B'Shimon. The Amar who says, Hai Malkam L'chud, Hai Malkam L'chud. The placement of the blood of the Chatas is slightly different than the placement of the blood of the Oilas Ha'oif. Hai Malkam L'chud. This one has its own place, and this one has its own place. Sani, as we learned in the Braisa, Dam Matachtoin, the blood which is meant to be downstairs, Nitanin are applied Michut HaSikra, Ulamata, beneath the red dividing line. Well, Yoinim, and the blood which meant upstairs, Michut HaSikra Ulamata, goes above that red line. When do we give this sort of general placement description? Regarding Oilas Ha'oif, blood goes anywhere above the dividing line. But by Chatas Behema, which is the subject of our discussion today, it needs a more precise location. Hi Atzma, in itself, Ei Nasa. So this is sort of an emphasis, a lashon of emphasis. Hi Atzma, Ei Nasa. El Al Gufal Shekaren has to be on the actual Karen. Like we said, the protruding, corners. So clearly it's a different place than the Oilas Ha'oif. So the statement of the pasuk that the Chatas, and only the Chatas, is there, is very accurate, because although the Oilas Ha'oif is somewhere there, it's somewhere in the vicinity, but not in that same place. And even that was only the Oilas Ha'oif. But other karbanos, like the Asham, certainly goes downstairs, as per their Lezer and Risho's discussion. So bottom line is, when the pasuk says that the Chatas' blood is upstairs, it doesn't really relate to the Oilas Ha'oif, because the Oilas Ha'oif is in a different place. Right? So the pasuk is related to all other karbanos, aside from Oilas Ha'oif, and telling you, only the Chatas goes upstairs, and nothing else. Okay, so bottom line is, we started with the halacha of Mechash Navoid Lavoida. He did the Shchita Lishma, with the kavanah to do the zrika shel lishmo. Rechon says pasul, compares it to pigel. He applies the same to the avodah zara animal. Shlakish says in all cases it's kosher. It can't compare to pigel, which works on a different system. And we have Rayas, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rish Lakish. Then we have the exceptions, right? Typically, Shlei Lishma is kosher, except for Chatos and Pesach. It adds the Asham as well. We had several attempts at sourcing it. Conclusion was that it's a Hekesh, Chatos Asham, just like Chatos Shlei Lishma is Pas, likewise the Asham. This was after 2 attempts at proving it based on Kal V'chomers, etc., which Rabbi Shua negated. And that took us to the last part of our discussion, which sort of reanalyzed their back and forth and explained what each one had in mind. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rab.